Welcome back into JumpStart Sports. Another day, another episode. Jason Kopp, welcome back in. How are we doing, buddy?
We're doing great, man. It's good to be back. I'm ready to talk some sports and just shoot the shit with you as always. I'm ready to get into this. How about you?
Another crazy Sunday. I always
Such a
just look
good
forward
week.
to the Super Bowl coming up because it just really gets you fired up. The greatest game of the year where you have America's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And even though neither of our teams will be in this game for quite some time, it's still fun just to appreciate the game of football. And yesterday, we had two great games. We got our money's worth, I guess, however you want to put that, but two awesome games. And
Sure.
getting right into it, everyone, I think this is a fair statement to say, everyone thought the Chiefs were going to win that game before it even started, but most people probably wanted the Bengals to win for many different reasons, because they didn't want to see the Mahomes family. They
Yeah.
they wanted just a new trend, because this would have been the Chiefs' third Super Bowl in a row, and it's always good to root for the underdog.
And I think Joe Burrow is so likable too. Like the way he dresses, the way he dresses the media, the way he talks. Like such a refreshing young. I mean, not that Mahomes is old. Like Mahomes is 25 or 26, but Burrow is just like the new generation. He brought the Bengals to relevance. So it's kind of someone to root for. He's always been this underdog that you'd root for. Um, the Mahomes family not being in the Super Bowl definitely is a huge benefit. I didn't even think of that. That's just very true. Now Jackson Mahomes can't dance on any more fields, any
Well, it's funny because
memorials.
before the game even started, there's like social media was just talking about, you know, as a superhero type situation, Joe Burrow is the only one who can save this world from the Mahomes family.
He and
And
Tom
sure
Brady.
enough, he fulfilled his duty and saved the day.
I knew it was going to be trouble when he walked in with that huge, icy
The mink.
silver coat.
Yeah.
You had to know it was basically over. He just like he exudes confidence. Joey Burr,
Ice in his veins.
100%.
And if you want to just talk a little bit about the game,
Sure.
being down 21-3,
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Mahomes started off very hot, finding his two favorite targets with Hill and Kelsey for touchdowns, being up
Yeah, yep.
21-3, being down
Mhm.
18 points in that game on the road. You have nothing to lose, but what do you think was going through Joey Burr's mind at that point?
I think Joey Burr was. I think he was probably pretty calm, honestly. I mean, it's definitely heartbreaking to see that Mahomes threw 3 touchdowns against a very stout defense with the Bengals in the first half. Obviously, Tyreek Hill was getting cooking. Travis Kelsey was getting cooking. So, I mean, you have to be like, shit. Like, and the Bengals couldn't really move on that defense either. The Chiefs were playing pretty good defense. But as it started unraveling in the second half, obviously maybe Zach Taylor had some amazing speech, or maybe Joe Burrow did, but they came out ready to go, and they started doing something that was really smart, which is just seeing the open man, which is like every single time. Jamar Chase is an unbelievable talent, but what the Bengals have in their pocket is they also have T. Higgins, who's like a 1B to Jamar Chase's 1A. It's not like he's like the second receiver. He's super, super talented. So he ended up with over 100 yards, and then they started coming back, and and also they lost to Uzoma, which we'll have to see if that's a thing. I think he probably, given that he was carted off and it was diagnosed as an MCL sprain immediately, I imagine he probably won't be ready for the Super Bowl. So that's actually a huge loss for them. That's something to keep an eye on. But I mean, the second that it got to OT, right? So Evan McPherson, or actually no, he scored a touchdown in the last seconds of the game. Didn't he? I'm
Yeah, and then Bucker sent it to overtime, and then the
right,
Chiefs got
right.
Chiefs got the ball to start the overtime, and
did you see? So sorry to interrupt you, but
yeah.
when when that happened, Josh Allen tweeted out pain
Yeah.
because Mahomes won the I guess to continue. So when Mahomes won the toss again, obviously visiting team calls. I think it was the second consecutive week that they called heads and it was wrong and it was tails.
Mm,
Mahomes got it and it was like the whole stadium erupted. Everyone had a collective sigh because it's Patrick Mahomes, and you just have to kind of assume he's going to drive down the field and win you that game.
yeah.
He did it against the Bills, which was such an improbable win. And you kind of had a feeling he was probably going to do it again. It's not that the Bengals defense isn't good. Like, it's actually really, really good. But, Eli Apple's
They
on that
definitely got a
team.
lot of luck on their side for sure.
Yeah. And so there was a collective sigh, and Joey Burr talked about it afterwards. And he was like, yeah, no, I mean, when you give Patrick Mahomes the ball, there's nothing you can do but be
Hope
like,
for a
okay,
miracle.
we're screwed. It's either he makes a mistake, which is super rare, or our defense just locks up. And the defense locked up. They intercepted it when it was honestly, I don't know if you saw the pass. It was actually on the money. Like, it was right
Tyreek Hill
there.
should have caught that ball. It wasn't an easy pass. It was a bullet, and it was well defended. Bad bounce that the defender just barely caught. It just kind
Yeah.
of seemed like he ended up in his hands, but
Mhm.
Tyreek Hill should have caught that football.
Pick in the next play, Montana beat him with a touchdown pass to Taylor. And now they go deep down the field, and it is intercepted on the rebound by Bell. On Bell. Oh, he is clobbered, clotheslined at the 45. But they take over. The Bengals with the third straight game in the playoffs where they come up with a crucial pick.
He placed it actually like perfectly
Yeah.
for such like a tough contested catch that was double coverage. He put it right on Tyreek Hill, right on the numbers. So it was interesting that he. It sucks that he wasn't able to come down with it, I guess, for him. But then once you give the Bengals the ball in OT and they got the ball second possession, all they have to do is kick a field goal.
Yeah.
And they drove all the way down the field. Mixon ran it really, really well. And then they just fell down. And Evan McPherson for the second week straight comes up clutch and just nails. It was a chip shot, but still nails what was the winning field goal against the Chiefs, which was something no one expected. I'm super excited that they had no business winning this, but I'm super excited that they won.
Talking a little bit about overtime, I had this conversation with some people before, and after the Bills game, it was all over social media how OT rules need to be changed potentially.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like I don't know if OT rules have ever been different in the history of the NFL or not, but some ideas that I had about that real quick is if it needs to be changed just to give both teams an equal opportunity to win and not have overtime be decided on a coin toss.
Mm-hmm.
Either I think they should look into doing it the way college does it, where both teams get the ball at the 20 and get an opportunity to try to score, or do it like the NBA sort of, where you put 5 minutes on the clock or 10 minutes on the clock and just play till the clock hits zero, so that way both teams have an opportunity to try to win that last period. But definitely something the NFL needs to consider going forward, because
they should do a college OT. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But it was funny because last year it was the Chiefs who were trying to petition for the OT rules to be changed. And they just happen to be the beneficiaries this year twice, except for, this year the Bengals pulled it out. But it's definitely an interesting discussion. I think it'll be something that they really have to take a hard look at, because similar to like how pass interference, a catch, that was what it was. A catch no one could explain what a catch was for like 10 years, which is crazy because the sport has been going on for a super long time. And no one could explain what a catch was, which is so strange. I think they're going to have to probably really look at this and consider moving it to more of a fair. I think you're right. I think college OT actually makes so much sense, and it would be super entertaining.
Yeah.
So whatever. We'll have to see. And talking about another game that almost went into OT, 49ers at the Rams. Now, this is a really interesting thing because the 49ers are coming into LA, which is also where the Super Bowl will be held, at this new stadium, beautiful stadium. But there was actually more Niners fans, it seemed like, at least according to like Vivid Seats, than the Rams, which is kind of funny. And the Rams also are a team that had no business being in this game. So it was another team that people were rooting for, but also people wanted to see Matt Stafford, who has spent his whole career on an awful Lions team with no hope at the playoffs, finally take a run. He's been perfect this whole playoff run. And then he came into this game, and what happened, Shu? Tell me a little bit about this game.
Matt Stafford, I've always been a big supporter of him because, as you know, what he's been through just playing for the Lions and the pain that he had to deal with being in Detroit. When he came to LA this offseason with that trade with Jared Goff, I just had a feeling he was gonna make something special happen there. He had so many weapons just with Cooper Kupp, and once they lost Cam Akers, then lost Robert Woods, like you said, I didn't think they had any business being here. But it doesn't matter how good your team is. A lot of it just has to deal with luck and getting breaks. Like the Bucs should have easily been in this game, but they lost, a heartbreak on a game-winning field goal to the Rams 2 weeks ago. The Bucs should have been in this game, but they lose, two of their best receivers, and it costs them. And then the Rams get a break. They lose Robert Woods, Bobby Trees, but they get OBJ. And honestly, I'm a big OBJ fan. I'm really happy for him because I know you probably are too because he was on the Giants.
Totally.
But he should have never went to the Browns in the first place. I think he just went there to play with his brother Jarvis. Not actually his brother, but his best friend.
From LSU.
Played at LSU together. Yeah. His brother.
Okay.
But he comes to LA and he's been doing nothing but balling out for them. So I'm happy for him. But they get Cam Akers back and everything was just kind of clicking for them. They won this game 20-17, and their defense just really stood up for them. There was a point during the game where I completely forgot that they had Aaron Donald and Von Miller.
They didn't do anything the whole game.
Jalen Ramsey played very well, and when you have those three out there, it's not an easy team to score the football on. Deebo Samuel played really well. George Kittle was non-existent in the playoffs this year.
He scored a touchdown.
He did score a touchdown, but he hasn't really made
he hasn't been what he was
doing in the regular season. Absolutely.
Totally.
Elijah Mitchell didn't do anything. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't do anything wrong, but in those games you have to go above and beyond to take your team to the Super Bowl, and it's a shame the Rams are just swarming him.
Garoppolo under pressure. Donald got there in the air, intercepted by the Rams, and they may ride to the Super Bowl on that.
And on that, last play for them, he throws the interception, and it's a shame his career with the 49ers will most likely end on a pick. But
I think that that play. So I'll just be the one to say it. Jimmy Garoppolo is a fine quarterback. He's a good quarterback. He's the reason that they're not winning Super Bowls, like with the 49ers. He's not good enough. Like, the defense and the run game have carried him so hard. Like, the last two games, Jimmy Garoppolo has, before this game, right? Jimmy Garoppolo has thrown 0 touchdowns and 1 interception in both games. Like, he doesn't do anything that's special. He doesn't. Like, he's a fine quarterback. He'll probably start somewhere else, given that he was able to lead this team to the playoffs again. But he was also riding the back of a very, very good defense and a very, very good run game and an amazing O-line. Like, if you put a different quarterback behind there, and I know that's just a hypothetical, but that's probably a Super Bowl team. I think that the way that he lost was unfortunate and it was ugly.
Better try the reflection test. Ugly.
But it also reminds you why they drafted Trey Lance. Like Jimmy Garoppolo's never going to take them to the promised land. I just don't see it.
Keep
He's
in
a
mind,
super
too,
handsome dude, and he's got that going for him. But I'm saying football-wise, no shot, man.
I mean, looks only get you so far, but
That's right.
keep in mind, Jay, the 49ers were up 17-7 heading into the fourth quarter and did not score a single point.
And they also blew a huge defensive like when Matt Stiffy Staff threw him the ball, like literally threw it to the 49ers DB and it hit him in the chest and he missed it.
Jaquasi Tart or something.
Yeah, Tart. Oh man, that's gonna be a play that he'll remember forever.
Yeah, he addressed social media apologizing, and it's a tough situation with that because it's like, yeah, you've been playing football your whole life and it's your job, but in the heat of the moment, stuff like that happens. It's a part of life. People make mistakes, and I hope he's not getting threats at all on social media, but that's kind of how people are. Yep. They look at you as the villain when you don't do something, when you make one mistake. But like I said, can't blame him necessarily, because when you're up by 10 heading into the fourth quarter and you can't score a single point, you don't deserve to win that game. And,
nope.
Stiffy Staff got the job done. The Rams D stood up, and goddamn Cooper Kupp, I love him. He is so good. 11 catches, 140 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, if he can play like that in the Super Bowl, and he can play better than Jamar Chase, Rams should win this game fairly easily.
So let's just give a quick preview of this game, and then we can move on. So the big game is in 2 weeks, and it will be obviously the Rams and the Bengals. What do you think about your playoff predictions? Excuse me. With so it's kind of interesting. I feel like this matchup, because they never played in the regular season, at least to my knowledge.
They did not.
The Rams.
You are correct.
Thank you. The Rams boast a very, very, very good defense with Aaron Donald, Leonard Floyd, Von Miller. They have Jalen Ramsey. They have some really, really good players. But the Bengals also have a ridiculous offense with Jamar Chase, Higgins, probably no CJ Uzoma, but we don't know. Joe Mixon. Do you have any thoughts of actually Tyler Boyd's pretty good too. He was pretty underrated as a receiver.
Yeah.
How do you think they match up, and what is your prediction of like what the score will be?
I said this before, and a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I stand by what I said. You said it about the Rams, but I'm saying about the Bengals. I think the Bengals have no business being in this game, but put that aside. They're here. They earned it. They beat the Chiefs twice this year, so they do, in a way, have a reason to be in this game. But because nobody would have thought the Bengals would be in the Super Bowl this year. But what was the stat earlier this year with like the phones, or before phones were even invented? The Bengals.
It was so the Bengals. The last time they were in the playoffs, or won a playoff game. The last time they won a playoff game was before texting was invented.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That no one's ever texted about the Bengals winning, which probably isn't true. I'm sure there's some delusional and/or drunk fan who said that, but there definitely was no one saying anything about the Super Bowl. So
they're proving a lot of people wrong, and I always love a great underdog story.
Me too.
At the Eagles, but you just kind of look at it, and the Rams will probably be like a 3-point favorite, I'd say, or so, heading into this game.
It won't be much. I don't think.
Won't be much, but I don't know. I think I would like to see the Rams win. You look at last year. I think it was the first time in NFL history where the home team that played in their stadium won the Super Bowl with the Bucs.
Yes.
So for that to happen in back-to-back years is very impressive.
Crazy. Yeah.
I'm curious to see if a large portion of the stadium will be. I wonder how that works with Rams fans. Like, if they get priority because it's their stadium or if it's just whoever has more money gets the tickets. But I'm sure they're very expensive tickets to go to that Super Bowl
Oh
game.
yeah.
But I think the Rams too, and keep in mind, I think about 3 years ago when they got spanked by the Patriots in the Super Bowl, they knew they they knew they wanted to get back there,
Yes.
and now they're there, and I just think all the momentum's kind of shifting their way. Just with Matthew Stafford's journey, everything going on with OBJ, Cam Akers overcoming his injury, Aaron
That was so
Donald,
crazy.
Aaron Donald being deserving of a Super Bowl.
Oh, Higbee's hurt too, actually. So that'll be another thing to watch.
Yeah, Higbee will probably be out. We'll have to wait and see on that. Both teams losing their tight ends, but I think everything's going the Rams' way. I'd like to see the Rams win. I think it could be, another close game, like a 31-27 win for the Rams, something like that. But nothing's guaranteed. Can't sleep on Joe Burrow, and Joe Mixon could play well. T. Higgins is just, a big specimen. And then you can't you have to give, even though they're two different players, you have to give recognition. As much recognition as you give to Cooper Kupp, you have to give to Jamar Chase. And I think it's going to be a battle between the two of them, because just take a second to think about what Jamar Chase has done over the past 3 years. 2 years, excuse me, 2 years ago, he was in the national title game. Thank you. With LSU, if you remember this.
Yep.
And he absolutely balled out. I think he had like 10 receptions for 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he played just as well as Joe Burrow did, but Joe Burrow, balled out 400 passing yards, 5 touchdowns. But to win the national title and then to take a year off because of everything with COVID, and then he declares for the draft. And the draft this past year, he gets picked, what was it, 3rd by the Bengals?
5th.
And now in his rookie season, he will most likely be offensive rookie of the year, and he gets to go to a Super Bowl, regardless of the outcome of the game. That is just unbelievable. And he is so good, Jamar Chase. Like he is their number one receiver, and he is just going to continue to just skyrocket in this league.
And Joe Burrow coming into, it's so impressive. Like Joe Burrow came into what was a terrible, terrible situation with the Bengals.
Yeah.
Took their whole franchise and turned it around. And they still really don't have a very good O-line. Like, I think Aaron Donald and Von Miller are going to dominate that O-line.
Yeah.
But they, in 2 years, they turned it around completely. Like, look, I mean, it's a really fun story that, Burrow's from Ohio. So he's a hometown kid. And he came and rejuvenized the franchise to the point where they are able to go to the Super Bowl with these elite talents on receiver. And I'm really happy for them. It'll be really tough to beat the 49ers. I think they're two different caliber teams.
You mean the Rams?
Did I say the Niners? Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I meant the Rams.
Someone didn't have their morning coffee.
I didn't, and I don't function well without it.
But I think like in all sports, it's starting to show more and more that the rebuilding process based off of like draft picks works so much better than trying to trade your way.
Well, I mean, it's two different ways of looking at it, right? Like you have the Rams who traded literally all of their picks. Like they don't have a pick or first round pick till 2024. Because they traded their picks for Jalen Ramsey, for Von Miller, they got to sign OBJ, which is probably pretty cool, for Matt Stafford, Stiffy Staff, got that stiff staff. But and then you look at the Bengals, who took like a rebuilding approach, and obviously they'll probably add to their O-line this offseason.
Yeah,
and their defense, who like Trey Hendrickson was probably one of the best signings of the year. Absolute elite edge rusher from the Saints.
Oh yeah.
I like it, and Von Bell too. Very good player.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a little bit of both. I just feel like tanking as much as it's painful to watch a team be so bad,
Mhm.
it gives you something to look forward to. And
The next year, yeah.
this Bengal team is proof of that. Changing sports really quickly. You look at the
Oh, yeah.
Warriors. The Warriors were so bad for so many years, and then they draft Steph and Clay, and that rebuilding process got them a championship. And then obviously, like, this is kind of unheard of, but they did they trade to get Kevin Durant, or they just signed him?
Um,
I don't remember,
I
but
believe they signed him.
yeah, but just bringing signings and just bringing him over just made them, they won 2 straight championships. But
Look this up.
you just look at the Bengals, for example. They were so bad after losing really after the Carson Palmer era. Once that went down, and Chad Ochocinco and TJ Houshmandzadeh, after that, they just they signed him. They've been a pretty bad team for a pretty long time. But enter Joe Burrow last season. Even though they didn't make the playoffs, and he had to deal with that ACL injury, and the way he bounced back, very, very, very impressive.
Which makes me even happier because all those storylines about Dak, it's out the window. There's no way.
No.
It's him and his trophy alone.
Yeah.
I love Joe Burrow. Rooting for him. It'll be a really good game. I love that I have no stake in the game at all. That kind of makes me really happy. I hate rooting for one side or the other and then getting let down. At least in this case, it's two teams who I think are both really, really deserving. They both have a story of why they should be there. And
what do you make of the Super Bowl halftime show this year? It's quite interesting with Eminem, Kendrick Lamar, Snoop Dogg, and Mary J. Blige.
Yeah.
I was talking to my dad about it at dinner last night, and that generation of people just doesn't really know who those rappers are. So my dad's like, I will be taking a nap during the halftime show, where I guess that it appeals more to our generation. But
I feel like that was while we were growing up. I love Eminem and Snoop. Kendrick is one of the best rappers ever. I mean, it's kind of, I really liked their approach this year on the halftime show, about how this is kind of just like a hip hop tribute. Like it's cool.
Yeah, it's something different. Like last year, it was all The Weeknd. Like he got everything to himself.
I didn't even think it was that good, to be honest.
Yeah, I didn't think it was great either. I didn't think it's different. Like it's different. Different history, like different times, different genre of music. Like 2 years ago, it was Shakira and J-Lo, which was super hot to watch, but I didn't think it was like a great halftime show.
I feel like we could shake our butts like that.
Yeah, we could have easily done the same thing.
My hips don't lie.
But then, then The Weeknd got center stage, and he's very popular. But the show was just bad. So it'll be interesting to see what they do, because I don't know if they have any songs together or not. But I'm assuming they're gonna each get their own individual performance, and then they'll all come on maybe together to finish it off. Who knows?
I can totally see Eminem just being the one who starts, because he's the most. I don't know if actually maybe he's not the most famous. I don't know. I just love Eminem.
It'd be a really funny prop bet. And this is obviously this is like the whole world's watching, so it's very different from I think it was it might have been an MMA event or a boxing event this past summer, and Snoop Dogg was like rapping.
Oh yeah.
He was like smoking pot. Yeah. It was also in LA, which is legal. So this is in LA too. So I'm curious, like on stage, if he's just gonna be ripping a joint. But since the whole world's watching, my guess is probably no. So I'd bet the no on that bet. But
I would also bet the no.
That'd be pretty funny.
That'd be so funny though if he just. Hold on, guys, 1 second. He's probably used to it. He doesn't cough anymore.
Yeah, he's high 24/7.
All right, let's keep this baby moving. So,
choo choo.
So some things that we want to talk about. This is probably one of the most recent news stories in the NFL. For those of you guys who are waiting for basketball, I swear we'll get to it. It's just the NFL is so prevalent right now with the playoffs, and This news was wild. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Like with Tom Brady,
Tommy Bahama.
Tommy
So
Bahama, Tommy
it's just
Kissy
like this
Kids
goes
Bahama.
into a whole different discussion of just like journalism and reporting and putting the facts, out there and being truthful and everything, and not everybody, like you look at Adam Schefter, everybody wants to be the first one to break the news. Woj bomb, think about all the different reporters. Everyone wants to be the first one to break the news. But the problem with that is when you break the news first, what if it's false information? Not only is your are people not going to start to trust you anymore, but you could lose your job.
Yep.
And Adam Schefter breaks the news, and this is not the first time where he has dropped news that was not 100% truthful. So technically, Schefter could lose his job, but he won't. But putting that aside,
if Shannon Sharp doesn't lose his job from the shit with Julio, excuse my language,
Yeah.
leave that one out. If he doesn't lose his job because of the Julio thing where he took a phone call without Julio knowing, which is not okay and also I think illegal, then I think it'll be fine that Schefter was wrong. And Garofolo. Mike Garofolo was also on that.
But what was this? I believe it was Friday the news was dropped.
I
believe it was Friday, and the reason I say that is because it was very funny timing, because the second I got the notification on my phone, I was watching the first episode with my roommate of Man in the Arena with Tom Brady, which is very good. I highly recommend it. Okay. Not a huge Tom Brady fan. I never really have been, but regardless if you like someone, like you could say the same thing about Michael Jordan. Like you could be like, he's a prick. Not a big fan of him, but as an athlete, his stats back up who he is and why he's the greatest of all time. And as hard as it is for me to say that, Tom Brady is the greatest football player of all time, in my opinion. Not just the greatest quarterback. I think he's the greatest football player of all time. Just from his situation of what he was able to do, from being the 199th pick in the NFL draft to taking over Drew Bledsoe's job at that point as a second-year quarterback, winning the Super Bowl. That whole situation, I don't know how familiar you are with it, Jay, but
yeah, very.
Yeah, but with Brady getting hurt in that AFC Championship game and then Bledsoe coming in and winning it for them, but yet Belichick still decides to go with Tom Brady, and he wins the Super Bowl for them. And flash forward a bunch of years later, he wins 6 more, and he could have had 10 total. It's just unbelievable. Who knows what's going to happen? We talked a little bit about it last night with the whole, if you want to get into it, with the whole contract situation, how he has to wait to a certain point to retire so that he doesn't, which is a very interesting situation if you want to get into that with the whole owing money.
So it's for his bonus. So I think it's this Friday. If he stays a Buccaneer until this Friday, then supposedly he will have it's like $16 million. If he does it, or if he does it before, if he retires before this Friday, he technically owes the Buccaneers $16 million. Otherwise, like if he retires after this Friday, then the bonus will hit. But I think it was excuse me. I think it was more than the contract situation, because I really feel like the Bucs, given what Tom Brady has done for that franchise, given who Tom Brady is, I feel like they would have no problem giving him that money back. I don't think that they would make him pay it. This is what I think is interesting. I think Tom Brady, and I don't even think it's a question, I think he's the greatest of all time. I don't think anyone will ever supplant what he has done in this league and how he's the winning most player ever. With that said, the dude is super LA. He has a media company. I don't know if you've seen all of the videos that he made for every game that he won, but they're so cringe. That he's like, "Let's go!" Like, and then all these highlights. and then a whole highlight reel of like the games come out. It's super cringy because he's like a dad, so it's super cringy. I think he wanted to do it on his own terms with a media company, the same way Big Ben did, where it was like a whole thing where he's like, taking the stuff from his locker room and it's a whole film. Like, I think that's what he wanted to do. And when people close to him revealed that he was going to be retiring before him, and then I think that was like not to his plan. That's really what I think. I think that because they all doubled down on it, which I thought was interesting. Like, yes, I definitely agree with you. Sometimes Schefter has been wrong, and very valid that you should call people out, especially in journalism when they're wrong. But for him to double down on it instead of apologize, I think that there are some very, very close people to Tom Brady, whether it's in his camp, which I imagine it is, or his agent, who also posted something, mind you, about him retiring and then took it down.
Yeah.
I don't
do it on his own
smoke.
terms.
There's fire. That's all I'm saying. What'd you say?
So, it's like you said, he wanted to do it on his own terms.
I still think he'll retire.
I'm surprised like Big Ben didn't really do like a press conference, but kind of like Peyton Manning did. I feel like Tom Brady, like in a way, owes that. And just kind of who he is. Like, it makes sense for him to gather the whole world to watch him say some final words.
Yeah, he's one of the most polarizing people in sports.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. One of the most iconic players. He's 44 years old. You can just tell, like, even though he could still easily play, I feel like another 3 seasons. He just has he really just doesn't have anything left to prove. He has nothing left to play for. He's such a big family man. He wants to be with his family. The future of the Bucks with next year is uncertain.
Yeah, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, if he wanted to go back to the Bucks, he's not just going back just because he wants to play another season. He wants to go back to end on winning a Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So, could he pull a Brett Favre and come out of retirement? Maybe. It is possible. It's not out of the question, but
I think someone more. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought this is a good way to transition, but I thought someone more likely to come out of retirement in a couple of years goes by the name of Sean Payton.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sean Payton, the coach, the legendary coach of the Saints, brought a Super Bowl with Drew Brees to New Orleans. He also has retired. My guess is that he'll probably end up at Fox, which is where Troy Aikman just left. I imagine they basically guaranteed him that spot. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of television networks offered him jobs. So I think that with Sean Payton, it leaves a lot more question marks than answers with New Orleans.
That Saints team is going downhill fast.
That team is in shambles.
Once Drew Brees retires and now Sean Payton stepping away, I do not see Michael Thomas being on that team this next season. And sure enough, Alvin Kamara will follow eventually. That team is going downhill fast.
You know what's interesting, though, is there was speculation. I don't remember the exact connection of why this is the case, but there's a lot of speculation that he'll end up going to the Cowboys in 2 years.
Sean Payton?
Yep. Maybe that was a team that he worked for or something. There's something there. Or he rooted for.
Maybe just Cowboys.
Or the cheerleaders.
That too. A lot to like there.
It's kind of funny. They also don't have a quarterback in place, which we'll get to soon. But I mean, they just signed Taysom Hill to this extension that we have talked about on probably our second episode ever.
Yeah,
that's just this disgusting contract extension for a do-it-all guy. But they don't have a franchise quarterback, and technically, Jameis Winston is a free agent this year, so it kind of makes you think.
It makes you think. So every team, we can talk about this right now, has an interesting quarterback situation, which brings us to a new segment on the show we've been looking to release for a while now. Here we go. Toppies. Mr. Cop, the floor is yours.
Hey, guys. It's time to bring the energy on this nice Monday morning. 9:10 a.m. Copies, Toppies. Thank you. Welcome in to this week's version of Copies, Toppies. Well, in this Toppy of the week, brought to you by Copy himself. I don't like that I just put myself in third person. So we're going to talk about the QB carousel. So this is an off-season kind of topic that I thought of, where it's all of the teams that need to address the position this off-season, and then kind of like our predictions and talking a little bit about each situation. Let's just get right into it. We just talked about them a little bit. So the Saints. So obviously, they have a new GM, I believe, that's coming in place. Sean Payton left. So you think Michael Thomas is going to leave, right? But like, what do you think they'll do with the quarterback position?
I think they need to try to pursue one of the free agents. I'm not really too familiar with the quarterback class coming in for the draft, but I think they need to go and try to pursue someone, try to convince a quarterback like maybe Jimmy G. I don't see like Rodgers or Wilson wanting to come play for the Saints, but
Not anymore.
not anymore with the team, the way they're trending, but the way they looked 2 seasons ago with the healthy Michael Thomas and healthy Alvin Kamara, who, Kamara had a very streaky year this year. With the way with everything going on with that team, it's just not a very like tasty team to want to go play for.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure who they'd be able to get in terms of that. So that's why they'll probably re-sign Jameis Winston, I feel like, for one more year.
You think so?
And have Taysom Hill just so they have someone to fill the position. But they definitely need to look, to the future and try to get another Drew Brees.
Yeah, they're going to be a disaster this year. They're also losing Taron Armstead, who's their all-pro, Pro Bowl, whatever you want to say, all accolades. Yeah. He's so amazing, left tackle, which is a huge L for them. So that's kind of where the Saints are, and they're also in cap hell. They did an incredible job actually last offseason, kind of like switching around the cap to make themselves get back under it. But right now they're in cap hell. So it'll be kind of interesting how they decide to do this. I'm not sure if they can cut MT straight up, but they're definitely going to probably look to trade him as well. So to continue with this Copies Toppy of the week, the next one that we're going to go through is the Panthers. So in Carolina, not really a team that you root for, if I'm just going to be honest. Like right now, this offseason, they took they took a huge swing and big whiffed with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold played horribly, and they also signed him to an extension after I think a couple games or maybe 2 or 3 games. They signed him to another 1-year extension because he was actually the leading rusher in the league for touchdowns, which is weird. And then they decided to bring back Cam Newton. I'm trash.
I'm back.
So he had one good game, and then everything went basically how Cam Newton always goes, which is he's terrible, and the team basically fell apart. And they weren't able to make the playoffs as well. It's a super weird team. Their defense is unbelievable, but they're not very well coached. Matt Rule is not great. They just hired Ben McAdoo, the old Giants head coach who got fired for benching Eli. I think with this Tepper, sorry, that's funny. So the owner, David Tepper, I think with Tepper, they're going to swing. And I think if Deshaun Watson is willing, I think this is where he goes.
Cam Newton's done with them. I think his career is probably done unless he ends up as a backup somewhere.
I think so too.
So Sam Darnold will probably get another chance, but yeah, like you said, if they can swing Deshaun Watson and if CMC can stay healthy, they need to find somebody who can get DJ Moore the ball.
Yeah, I mean, like they have DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson is like and they have Terrace Marshall, who they drafted, who also didn't play well. But yeah, they just need someone to rejuvenate that franchise, even though that O-line is pretty terrible too. And speaking of terrible O-lines, the Steelers we'll talk about next. So would you like to go into them a little bit with Big Ben?
Yeah, I mean they have a big quarterback decision to make as well with Mason Rudolph, Dwayne Haskins, just two guys who aren't gonna lead them anywhere, and they have so much talent on that offense. They got their running back in Najee, Deontay Johnson's a stud. If Chase Claypool and if they want to re-sign Juju and keep them, and they can get their acts together. And now they have, a big tight end and Pat Freiermuth. If they can just get their act together and they can get a mobile quarterback, like, wow, you put Deshaun Watson on that team, that is a playoff competing team right there.
Yeah,
so,
I agree.
If they can make a move like that, they need another quarterback. They gotta release Mason Rudolph, and I don't really know. Maybe just because he's younger, I'd probably rather have Haskins. I think he could still have some potential, but they definitely need a starting quarterback, and that should be their main priority right now. I don't know if they want to look to the draft for that, but there's talks about Kenny Pickett. But if I'm the Steelers, I'm doing everything I can to try and get my hands on one of the top options when it comes to free agent quarterbacks this year.
Yeah. I think another team is super interesting. This one will be put into the news like probably no other that on this list, but the Broncos are going to be a team to watch. Personally, I think if anyone else does, like, I think that this is the team that the stars align for Aaron Rodgers. I thought that a while ago. We talked about it. I think it now, especially now that Nathaniel Hackett, who was the OC for the Packers, has left and come to the Broncos as to be the head coach. I think they're a pretty ready-made team to win. I don't know. They could take another shot in the draft, but the last kind of shots that they took in the draft ended up being Paxton Lynch and Drew Lock. So I feel like maybe don't go that route. I think they're going to be a team to watch for sure for like a Deshaun Watson, but more so like an Aaron Rodgers, maybe Russell Wilson. I think they're they're a ready team to win. They barely missed the playoffs this year.
Yeah, they are right there. They could. You say that about most teams, but they could be a team that's just quarterback away from getting the job done. And fortunately, I just don't think Teddy's that guy. So even though I don't know if I see Rodgers on the Broncos, anything's possible.
Anything's possible. Moving on. This is one of the most dumpster fire organizations probably in the entire league. No doubt about it. The Texans always have been a dumpster fire especially ever since that trade for David Johnson where they gave away DeAndre Hopkins and basically a bag of cookies.
It must have been a good bag of cookies.
It was a good bag of cookies. Those Cardinals munched that shit up.
And even when they had Watson and Hopkins, they weren't a good team. I don't know if they made the playoffs or not, but
they definitely have made the playoffs.
Oh yeah, wasn't that the year they were up 24-0 on the Chiefs, and the Chiefs came back and beat them, right? And then they won.
They were and the game before they had no business, but they beat the Bills and Josh Allen as well. And then the year before this past year, Deshaun Watson led the league in passing yards, and then they didn't make the playoffs. But they're such a dog shit organization. I mean, they fired David Culley for no reason after he put together, like, honestly, a pretty competitive year for probably what was the worst built roster in the NFL. But I think theirs is going to be more of a question after this year. I think they're probably going to be. I mean, they'll get more draft capital from Deshaun Watson to rebuild their team if they trade him. I can't imagine they're going to like they paid Deshaun Watson his whole salary this year. Like, it's so dumb. So I imagine they'll trade him. But Davis Mills actually kind of impressed. He was probably one of the better rookie quarterbacks, surprisingly. So I don't know.
We also don't know if Deshaun Watson will even get to play next year or not.
I think he'll probably get traded and then we'll get suspended. I still think it's. I just think the NFL is such a horrible place. I give it one more year, and I bet you he's back. with the stuff that happened, we've talked about it before. The stuff that happened with like Kareem Hunt, stuff that happened with Tyreek Hill, just terrible people. Ultimately, the NFL doesn't care. I bet you that like they're not going to let a guy who's probably like he's Showtime. He's incredibly fun to watch. Like I think objectively he's a very very good football player and he's a young talent and they will definitely give him the benefit of the doubt. Is how I think it'll happen. Even though he's a horrible person who deserves to be in jail.
Mm-hmm.
But moving on from that dumpster fire organization, let's move on to another dumpster fire organization that currently doesn't have a name. The Washington football team. Tell me a little bit about our NFC East rivals, Shuey.
Yeah, I mean, that was just a disaster this past year, trying to find somebody to play the quarterback position. And then, come down the stretch of the year, they thought Heineke was their guy because 2 seasons ago he showed some spark for them. But who knows if he's the guy or not. Another team that doesn't have, Scary Terry, but they just don't have a whole lot of offensive weapons for them. So I don't really know if it's Heineke's fault or if it's just the Washington offense in general. But Gibson didn't really have such a great year this year. But they just don't have a whole lot of so many pieces on that offense. So we'll see. Probably Heineke will be there. He'll get the nod to start the season, but it's another team that needs to find another option for them because
do you think if they find a quarterback that they could? Because I feel like a year ago we would have been having this discussion over the phone before this podcast existed, and I think that the Washington football team was probably one of the teams that you would thought that were going to be on the come up this year, and that were a QB away from really, really making a playoff push.
Yeah.
Given what happened last year, or sorry, the year before this past year. Do you think that's still a possibility if they retain or obtain a new quarterback who could elevate the franchise?
I don't think so. I mean, there's so many teams, like we said, that are just a quarterback away from being competitors, but I don't know. Even if you put like Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson on this Washington Commanders team, or whatever they
I think it's the Admirals. I think it's going to be the Admirals.
The Washington Presidents.
The Washington Generals.
The Washington Nationals.
The Washington Red Tails.
Washington Capitals.
Washington Butt Cheeks.
Whatever they are. I just don't think that the quarterback's going to make all that much of a difference. It could, but we'll see. Chase Young had that tough injury, and he's a beast. So I think they're just going to be a very average team. They could be like another 9-9 team, something like that. But
I just want to see Terry do something. I love Terry.
Yeah, he's so good, and he's just he's going to want to get out of there if it's just more of the same in the next couple of seasons. So
yep.
But onto I'm sure your next team you have is another dumpster fire of an organization as well.
They're a dumpster fire of an organization, but I love what they've done so far this past year. This is a team that you're obviously looking at that made strides to become something, because the Detroit Lions, I mean, they were pretty competitive this whole year.
Despite their awful record.
Despite their awful record. But Dan Campbell was a hell of a coach. I think he's a leader amongst men. And I think Goff actually didn't play terrible, honestly. And
yeah, given the situation he had to be thrown into, he did not do as poorly as we thought. DeAndre Swift was really their only playmaker. I know that Amon-Ra St. Brown popped off at the end of the year, but I don't really know how good he is. We've got a better feeling of it next season. But
I have the same feeling about him, actually.
That you think
I feel like he was a fourth-round pick for a reason.
Yeah, you think he's going to do really well again, or you think he'll just be average?
I think it depends on the other playmakers they have. Amon-Ra only really started popping off when DeAndre Swift got hurt and TJ Hawkinson got hurt. So, I'd be interested to see once they actually add a receiver not named Tyrell Williams.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because what if they in the draft or something got a Jamar Chase type player?
Right, and there are some very good receivers in this draft, like a Treylon Burks. There's Drake London. There's
2 studs from Alabama.
Jameson Williams and Mechie.
Mm-hmm.
There's 2 studs from Ohio State with Chris Olave, and I'm blanking on Wilson's first name for some reason. Whatever. Whoever he is. So I think they have to address that position. So they have to address a lot of positions, but I think that once they address that position, because they have 2 first-round picks as well, the first one that they have is way too high up for them to even consider one of these quarterbacks in this draft. I think it's possible they take one in the second round. It's possible, like a Sam Howell or a Malik Willis, maybe. But moving on, I think. But to put a bow on it, I kind of think that Detroit is one of the only teams that I really think are making the right strides to rebuild the roster. I really like their draft class, even though I don't think Amon-Ra is necessarily amazing.
Yeah,
he's a solid slot receiver.
If you want to take him in the 3rd round in fantasy next year, I'd be more than fine with that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? It's better than my strategy of taking Ayuk everywhere this year, huh? That didn't pan out. So this one we talked about a little bit before, but this has just been brought to light given the controversy around Tom Brady's retirement. So, I mean, here are the facts of the matter. Godwin is a free agent. They are a very ready-to-win team. They're the 2nd best O-line in the league. They have an incredible D-line. Their defense kind of struggled, but they were hurt this year. If Brady retires, they are so screwed. Like, they have nothing. They have no draft capital, really. They have Blaine Gabbert and Kyle Trask, who are basically the equivalent of a Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. So not good.
Don't compare anybody to the Giants quarterback situation. Don't ever do
You know
that.
what? I wanted to do it.
Kyle Trask is a saint.
Kyle Trask sucks.
He knows how to play in the warm weather.
Jake Fromm is as good as Kyle Trask. That's how I feel.
Let me just say this. They could be in a very difficult situation, but at the same time, of all these quarterback situations we're addressing with different teams, I think the Bucs are the most appealing team because if they can convince Godwin to stay, even if just for another year, and I know AB is gone, but I saw like Gronk's probably going to be gone too. If they could bring in Calvin Ridley and they have that 3 wide receiver, studs right there, and still don't sleep on like OJ Howard and Cameron Brate, and if they can bring Lenny back too, that's a very appealing team for a Deshaun Watson, for a Russell Wilson, for an Aaron Rodgers, for a Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know who they'd be able to reel in, but
I do think it'll be a team for Deshaun Watson to maybe consider waiving the trade clause.
With those weapons, it's not a team that's going to want Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask under center. They're going to make it their priority in this offseason to go after a quarterback who's going to lead them back to the playoffs. So you do make a good point. It is possible that they could be in a very bad situation, but I also just don't think they're going to let that happen.
I just think that without any clear backup plan, because they probably had no idea that Brady was even considering this until that press conference where it was the first time ever he didn't say that he was going to be here till 45. Kind of makes you think. So let's move on. So those are the main ones that we covered. I think that are the most important QB needy places: the Saints, Panthers, Steelers, Broncos, Texans, Washington, Detroit, Bucks. That's a whole lot of places if Tom Brady is not there. Now, I also think there are some on the cusp, and we can run through these pretty quickly. But I think they're really important to note because some of them need to have these addressed sooner than later, starting with the Browns. The Browns, especially as OBJ has proven how he still is very, very talented and an amazing receiver, look even worse than they did before by outing him as the reason that they weren't winning. They have no receiver really. Jarvis is going to be a free agent after this year, almost definitely.
Mm-hmm.
They save so much money by releasing him. Um, Baker is, I think, better at commercials than he is as a quarterback. I don't think he's very good. And he tries to be something he's not. I think they're going to be screwed if they don't move on from him, personally.
That's what they're making. Yeah, they're making it sound like the Baker era has come to an end. It'd be a good fresh start for them too. They still have talent with Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and they're a good defensive team, but they do. I think they do need a new quarterback. Don't know who or where, what they'll go to, but I think the Baker era has come to an end. If not, it'd be one more year with him, and I don't even know if he'd make it through the full season.
I feel like the Browns are like a 49ers light for what Jimmy Garoppolo is to that team. Interesting.
Yeah.
You want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, I mean, another team on the cusp. You look at the Falcons. Matty Ryan's career is probably, his days are numbered. I think he'll have probably one more season with them. But that's another team that's just going to be rebuilding. If they lose Calvin Ridley, that's pretty much their whole offense right there.
Yeah. They have no running back either. Cordarrelle Patterson, who probably will, for some reason, command a huge contract.
Why don't they just sign him as their quarterback? He plays every other position, so
they honestly should.
Might as well just make him their quarterback at this point. But they're another team that needs a good backup.
They're a dumpster fire too.
Yeah,
they don't have, besides from AJ Terrell on defense, they got nothing. The Colts, your boy, Ginger Jesus, Carson Wentz. I think he had a pretty year. Losing to the Jaguars in that last game pretty much was what Carson Wentz is in a nutshell. He is very hot, and then he's very cold, and then he'll lose to the worst team in the league. And then even Chris Ballard and they're gonna be thinking how to move on from him. The Eagles did great in fleecing them for a first round pick. No one thought that made sense then. Doesn't make sense now. I think they're right back in the QB market.
Yeah, I agree. I think they stick with Wentz for another year because they need a quarterback to fill the position. But I think the draft class and anything they could get their hands on in free agency.
They're pretty ready to win team too with Jonathan Taylor. So I feel like they're a receiver and a QB away from being really, really good. Now, I felt like this was only right that you talk about this team. You are a fan indeed, and I didn't add the Giants, but they probably should be here too. I just know that they're going to get one more year with him. Go ahead, talk about that Philly team.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed you left the Giants out, and they're in a very similar situation.
They're in a very similar situation.
They said they're going to make Danny Dimes their quarterback, at least for one more year. Eagles said they're going to make Jalen Hurts their quarterback in another way. They basically made a team for one more year. Yep. Gardner Minshew is probably going to be traded just to get something out of it, give him an opportunity to play somewhere. But we're gonna have to see, man. If I'm Jalen Hurts, I'm watching so much film in the offseason, and I'm doing everything I can to strengthen my arm to show them that I am not just a running quarterback. We've had this conversation so many times, I can't keep saying it over and over again. But if if Jalen Hurts wants to be the franchise quarterback that they wanted him to be, think about everything that's happened with the Eagles. They get rid of Carson Wentz, all that crap that went on with him and being benched. Nick Foles shows him up. Eagles haven't really. Everyone thought Carson Wentz was our quarterback, and look at what happened. And they go ahead and they draft Jalen Hurts, and they're like, "What are you doing drafting after the awful pick after missing on Justin Jefferson?"
Oh yeah, with Jalen Reagor.
Yeah, and then they take Jalen Hurts. That was the same draft, right?
That was the same draft.
Yeah, just the drafting that they did in that draft was just unbelievable. What are you doing? But Jalen Hurts has some promise. He does.
He does.
And all of the chips, are with him right now, and this season coming up, he has to show that he's the guy. And if more of the same happens and we get spanked in the first round of the playoffs again, or even don't make it, it's just like, what was all this for? Too far gone.
Yeah, I agree. I think that with Jalen Hurts, he made a lot of flashy plays, but and he had honestly, he had a good year. But throwing the ball, I thought there was a lot to be desired. He definitely overthrew guys consistently. I think he'll definitely have next year. He may have it. It'll kind of in my eyes, just be dependent on how much he develops. That's how I think it.
We need another receiver too. There are talks about us trying to get Calvin Ridley, which would be awesome. There are talks about Allen Robinson, but we are another team that's a receiver and a quarterback away from potentially being contenders. So
yeah,
I'll give the guy one more chance, and we'll see what he can do.
All right, and now moving on to the last two. The Dolphins, the whole controversy is with Tua. Tua was, God, I mean, they tried to trade three first-round picks for Joe Burrow to get up to that number 1 pick. The Bengals rejected immediately. They end up picking Tua over Justin Herbert. They can't seem to do anything right.
No.
And also those draft picks ended up all not being great. Tua, I will say this. Tua, I thought, had a better year this year. I think he had an underratedly very improved year when they went on that 7-game win streak. Do I think that he is going to lead them to playoffs consistently? I do not. I think that this team, the reason Brian Flores got fired was because he wanted Deshaun Watson. He understood that he wanted Justin Herbert, and the ownership didn't like that, so they canned him.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that they'll give him another couple years. We'll have to see what happens with this new offensive coordinator that comes in. If he's lucky, he'll get Mike McDaniels as a head coach. That would be a huge win for him, who is an offensive coordinator for the Niners. That would be a big win for him because he somehow made Jimmy work. I think give it a couple years, though, and I think he'll be gone. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. Another up-and-coming young quarterback who has to prove himself early, which, you want to give them some time and give them the benefit of the doubt to try and, mold themselves into an NFL quarterback. But there's so many teams that are just so impatient. And when you're a team like the Dolphins, that's kind of right there on the cusp of being a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
You want to, make moves quickly. So kind of have to see. It's another situation where, Tua's probably going to be given 1 or 2 more chances to show them. And they can't be the team that they've been the past couple of years that is alternating quarterbacks every game.
Absolutely. And the very last one, this one has just come to our attention, especially after the last game. We talked about it a little bit. San Francisco, they spent 3 first-round picks to trade up to Trey Lance, only to not play him at all in year 1. Granted, Jimmy Garoppolo did pretty well. But Jimmy Garoppolo showed why he's not going to be the quarterback to win you playoff games and or Super Bowls. He didn't even play that well in the playoffs. I think they'll probably trade him in the offseason. But this will be kind of hopefully – Trey Lance wasn't very good when he started. So, this is going to be a hopefully we can, figure it out. And Trey Lance, we can design a new offense around him.
Yeah, that'll be interesting too because they're a game away from the Super Bowl. And it's if they get rid of Jimmy, do they believe that Trey Lance is going to be good enough in his second year to get them back to the championship game? I don't know. They have enough weapons. I mean, Debo is unbelievable. George Kittle's unbelievable. Elijah Mitchell, when healthy, can be very, very good. If Trey Lance can be a mobile quarterback and become a playmaker, they might have something there. But Jimmy G was just so streaky this year, so it's very possible he gets the boot too.
Absolutely. Well, Shuey, appreciate the time as always.
Thank you for your copies, Toppy.
That was the copy toppies of the week. Well, ultimately, we appreciate you guys tuning in. We're gonna hopefully crank out another episode soon this week, but we love you.
Oh my God. Thanks for
No,
tuning in. Make
yeah.
sure to like and subscribe, and let's look
Throw us a little
forward to
comment.
the.
Give
let's
us a
look
little
forward to the-
comment.
Give us a comment, maybe. Tell us
Tell
if
us
we can do
stink
anything. Tell us if
and
we
we're
can.
ugly.
Tell us what we can do differently. We'll get some people on the show soon. That'll be a lot of fun, and get some special guests in here.
Yes, sir.
Emphasis on the special, and
Definitely special.
have a good one.
No, you.